Hi, family. This month we've been studying about salvation under the theme, what is the purpose of salvation? And we spent quite a bit of time establishing a series of lessons, saved without a doubt. And the primary reason for really studying through that statement or that series, saved without a doubt, is so that we can be a people who enjoy our relationship with God, who are enlightened about our value to God, and so that we're empowered by the Spirit to engage a world that needs Him. This week, in adding to that series, we've talked about what it means to see that salvation from Isaiah 52 and 53. The title for the lesson was, It's Not Free. It is a free gift, but it cost God. And what we've learned from that passage are 5 primary points that really help us to establish that thought. First thing we saw was the success of the servant that would come on God's behalf. God gives in Isaiah 52:13 through the end of that chapter a snapshot that basically says, I'm going to be successful in what I want to do in saving my people. And what we can learn from that is that there's not anything that stands in the way when God is up to getting involved in the lives of man. He guarantees success. But then number 2, we learned the shame of the servant. We talked about how, in as much as historically the nation of Israel would hear of Jesus coming, in particular Messiah coming, they had expectation through the Word of God. They saw the works of God year after year. But when He came, they rejected Him. In fact, that shame was not only out of a rejection and rebellion to the Word of God, but it revealed for us the concept of how broken man is when they expect one thing, but then God comes another way. Yet Jesus was the root out of dry ground. He comes in a regular manner to save mankind in a profound way. And we understood from verse number 3 of Isaiah 53 that rejection was sevenfold. Take some time and look at those 7 elements again as you go further in your study. But even though He would be shamed, He willingly engaged the suffering that would be necessary for our salvation. Verses 4 through 6 describe the power and the depth of that suffering. His suffering was devalued and misunderstood, yet it was vicarious and redemptive. We spent a good deal of time looking at verse number 5, and we saw how His experience helped our experience, or helps our experience even now. He bore our grief. He carried our sorrows. He was pierced through for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. He was chastened so that we could have peace. And He was scourged so that we can be healed. Our experience now comes out of the experience that the suffering servant had to go through. Number 4, we learned that suffering was horrible. It was profound in both the physical ramifications and the emotional ramifications, but He submitted to it. Jesus was willing to do whatever was necessary and submit to the suffering that the servant had to go for man to be saved. And we learned that He suffered completely, He suffered knowingly, and He suffered lovingly. He was completely aware of what had to be done. He gave Himself completely with no reservations. In fact, the Bible describes Him going like a sheep, silent before His shearers. He didn't fight it. He didn't kick. And when you read through the Gospels, that's the picture of the Messiah that we serve. He did all of that for us. He submitted to the necessary suffering so that we could have God's salvation. And then number 5, we learned the most profound of these points, in my opinion, that God is completely satisfied. The work of Jesus allows me to have justification. It was the will of God. It was God's design that allowed our salvation to rest on the shoulders of King Jesus. And he stood under and bared under the sins of man, past, present, and future, all men that have ever lived, all men that ever will live, so that their salvation can be guaranteed as a gift from God. So we have justification, but we also have propitiation, meaning that the price for our variance, our enmity with God has been completely paid by Jesus. What a profound thought. That salvation is a gift from heaven, and it's as big as heaven, even though it's given to people on earth. So what do you do with this? What do you do with this lesson about God's redemption? Well, the first thing you need to do is rejoice in the success of Jesus. Rejoice in particular that God has done everything necessary in suffering for you. He did it willingly. You rejoice in what God offers you. But then number two, be honest with God. Reveal to him the areas that you need to be healed. Part of the passage that says, by his stripes we are healed, is an ongoing thought. God is interested in healing all broken areas. He wants to bind up everything that's out of order. He wants to save us completely. Jesus would say, I came that they may have life and have it more abundantly. Number three, reposition yourself in the presence of God as one who is a benefactor of God's work, rather than one who merits and earns what God gives them. When you understand that you receive the gift, it makes the gift even more profound because God paid so much just for you to have it. And then number four, rejoice in the fact that God has done everything to save you, that your salvation is given by God, and then respond in love to a God who loved you first. I pray that this lesson is a blessing to you. Dig deeper, celebrate, investigate, and apply this word to your life.